Thank you, Eliza Boquin, for visiting with us here on Dharma Talk with Rabia Ilahi.
Yes,
You're
I'm so
our
excited.
honored guest.
Woo.
Okay, Eliza, you are a relationship therapist.
Mhm.
You are a sex therapist.
Yes.
And you're an energy healer.
Yes.
Tell me how all of that works.
Well, how all of it works. And really, just full disclosure, I'm able to do this work because of you. Learning how you were able to combine, the marriage and family therapy, which is, that's what my license is in. The sex therapy piece was something that as I started working with couples, the topic of sex was going to come up. So I was like, I need to get more training in that. And then in my own process, in my own work, how was I going to integrate this other part of me that goes beyond talk therapy, that goes beyond, just what we see, which is the energy piece. And so really being able to experience that myself, I'm like, I have to be able to offer this for my clients as well. And so the way that it works is I'm a full believer that in order for us to fully heal, we have to be able to integrate the body, the mind, the spirit. And I also believe that as humans, we are wired for connection with others. And so being able to heal what is so often what either makes life better or really stunts us from growth, our relationships, our romantic relationships. And then as it pertains to sex, there's often a lot of shame that sex is associated with, be it because of previous held beliefs, abuse, trauma, what have you, or misinformation. So being able to just address all those parts that I think for so many of us are what limit us in life. It's just, I don't know, it's just exciting to be able to do this work.
Well, and you seem really passionate about it too.
I am. It lights me up.
So when you're seeing a couple, how would a couple know that they need to see you for sex therapy as opposed to couples therapy? Like what are the differences?
Sure. So if there's, it doesn't have to be like this real major sort of crises that you experience as a couple. Maybe you just don't even know how to talk about sex.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's not uncommon for couples, it's like, we can do it, let's just not talk about it.
Yeah.
Because there's that shame.
Yeah.
There's the shame about sex, and they're either afraid to open up their, we have so much to lose with our beloved.
Yes.
We love, and then that's what also can limit showing up fully, because we're so scared to lose them. And so sometimes they're afraid to even share. And sometimes they don't know. There's this expectation that your partner should have it figured out for you.
Yes.
So it could be that you just don't even know how to talk about sex. It could be that you're on different pages. Maybe you've begun to avoid it. And maybe you just want to maintain, a healthy relationship or what have you. So you don't have to be in crisis about it.
Yeah, true. And do single people ever come see you? Would single people see a sex therapist, or just people in relationships? Or
absolutely, single people come. So I work with both men and women. I work with couples. I work with individuals. But I would say I light up when I get to work individually with women. And that's because women so often are so disconnected from their sexuality, which really means they're disempowered often in a very big way in their life, because our sexuality goes beyond the act of sex.
Yes.
Right? And so...
Well, what do you mean by that? Can you explain?
So it's really so often throughout history and even today, one way that women are often disempowered is by either by shaming them about their sexuality, or misinforming them, or just for them to be able to struggle to have any sort of sexual expression, which when you bring in the energy piece is what we also know, that our sexual energy is our creative energy, it's our creativity, it's our flow.
Yeah.
And so when we're cut off from this energy that goes beyond just the act of sex, that we can't necessarily be in the flow of our lives, that really disempowers us from really being able to show up fully in our lives. And I think that is why women in particular, again, we don't have to go very far to see that women have been cut off from power.
Yes.
I don't know, you know, is it getting better? Yes.
Yeah.
But historically, it wasn't that long ago we couldn't even vote, right? So we have been cut off from our power. And I think if you look throughout time, women who on some level maybe were comfortable with sexually expressing themselves, be it through the act of sex, talking about sex, doing work to address sexual issues, they were burned at the stake. They were cast out. There's a scarlet letter. Right? And so, you know, there's been a lot of research that shows that we carry trauma from our ancestors. Well, as women, we carry a lot of these women's trauma, shame, pain, fear. And so when I get to work with women one-on-one, where I'm able to help them release some of that shame, release some of that fear, that lights me up. That lights me up.
So as a woman of color, do you think sexual issues are different, or relationship issues even, if we go broader? Is your perspective different being a woman of color?
Absolutely. I think absolutely being a woman of color, I think because there's so many additional layers to this. Women of color, you know, in particular, we're either over-sexualized or, you know, we are deemed as not being sexy. Then you add the factors of culture. For example, I'm Latina, you know, I'm Mexican. And so a lot of the messages that I got, either overtly or covertly, were essentially, you know, I always tell people I had my role models of what it was to be a good woman were my grandmother, may she rest in peace, and she was a phenomenal woman, but she was a woman who had 18 children.
Oh, wow. Right? Okay.
Served everyone. Her whole life was around serving, and never asked for anything and didn't complain. You get extra points if you don't complain. And then the Virgin Mary.
18 kids and
the Virgen de Guadalupe, like that's your standard. Anything below that, you know, you're coming in short. And then if I see the images though in the media, when I'm looking at Univision or Telemundo, I see women, you know, very sexy, very comfortable, but it was, the sexuality was never for them. It was never for them to benefit from pleasure. It wasn't for them. It was for somebody else, either because if you are doing the act of sex, it's because you're procreating and you're having as many children as God's going to send you, and that's what you do as a wife or what have you. Or if you're on TV looking sexy while you're talking about the news, while you're talking about the weather, that's still not for you.
No.
And then if you actually enjoy it, well then you're a hoe.
Absolutely.
Those are your options.
So no wonder so many women have issues, or maybe even guilt.
Absolutely. Pursuing
pleasure or sex, not just for procreation, or maybe are shut off from their sexuality.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's not even on the radar. You know, sometimes, you know, if I'm working with let's say I'm working with a woman, I will ask them, you know, if they're struggling for whatever reason with sex in their relationship or just in their life, well, do you enjoy when you have sex with your partner? And it's like, oh, wait a second.
Let me think about that.
Yeah, like, oh, so I'm supposed to enjoy it too? Right? Like, that's not necessarily the factor. Like, why are we working on you having more sex? It's not always because I want to enjoy more sex. It's a lot of times it's so my partner won't leave me, so my partner won't be upset, so I can get them off my back. That's more often than not the reason that they are wanting to address sexual issues, versus because I'm tired of not enjoying it. I want to have more of it, or I don't want to have it and I want to be okay with that.
Yeah, true. Okay. I have some questions here
All
for
right.
you. Even though I feel like I know you pretty well.
You do.
What are some of the most common misconceptions people have about sex therapy?
That it's sex coaching. That
Like,
that I'm they don't. So it's interesting the questions that I'll get when people are coming in, because it's like, well, what does a sex therapist do? And so it's like, what does a grief therapist do? What does an addictions therapist do? You talk, and I just have more training in this. But sometimes people, think I'm going to either be hands-on,
show them what to do,
right, or I'm gonna come visit you at home. That's out of the scope of my expertise. What it is it's still, traditional talk therapy. I just have more education on how to deal with issues around sexuality, and it goes beyond just the performance, right? Because sometimes it's not just, because I can see people who, for example, women who have pain during intercourse, or low sex drives. But it goes beyond that. It goes sometimes about what are the beliefs that we have around sex, or what are the misconceptions. A big part of sex therapy is sex education.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times where we got our information, what we're setting our standards on about what our sex life should look like, it's based on myth, it's based on fantasy, it's based on what our friends, our misinformed friends told us.
It seems like the fantasies are also male oriented.
Yes.
Like the fantasies are projections of what men may want or find sexy.
Right.
And then what really works for women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always ask people, I use the example that if you came in to see me because you're in traffic court all the time, and the judge says you need to go see a therapist to work through some of these, is why you always hear. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, where did you learn to drive? Now, if you tell me you learned to drive by watching the Fast and the Furious, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's fantasy. Fun movie to watch. Great to escape with. Don't base your driving on the Fast and the Furious. And so what happens is a lot of people are basing their expectations on what they see in porn. And they're like, why, something's wrong with my relationship, or something's, I'm not against porn. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, but if that's what you are basing your expectations,
if that was your primary education,
right?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Don't do that.
Got it.
That's fantasy.
Okay.
That's the Fast and the Furious.
Yes. What did they say? Professional driver on the course, like, even in the commercials, like professional driver.
Right.
So, okay. Now, having been in practice, how is it different when you are practicing as a relationship therapist, sex therapist, energy healer, than what you learned textbook wise?
I believe that so much of therapy, the work that we do, this healing work, is, there's only so much that you can learn in a textbook. We need that, right? We need that. We need the education. We need the framework. That's just one part of it. But I believe that what makes for that connection that clients really crave is the human part of you. And that part is an art. Yeah. And that art is also a result of us doing our own work. Like, there's too many people who want to help other people do their healing, but are avoiding their own. Yeah. And so I think there's only so much that you can take from a textbook, and then the clients will sniff you out. Like, they will sniff you out when they're like, you're just talking, right? Yeah. And so some of this art is a result of life, like us going through our own stuff. And I truly believe us doing our own work as well, be it therapy, be it energy healing. There's so many paths to healing, but our work has to be ongoing on ourselves as well.
So you're one of the therapists, like me,
Mm-hmm.
who believes in getting therapy for herself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Therapists need therapy too.
I know. You also started the Flow and Ease Center. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was, I started this year.
And it's called?
The Flow and Ease Healing Center.
Okay.
And rebranded all my work after I finished my energy healing schooling, practice, training. I struggle to call it school.
I know.
Because it's not a classroom.
Yeah. Well, it's a classroom of life.
Of life. But it's
so
not
it
like
is a classroom.
It is a classroom, but not in the sense where I'm in a desk and you're at a whiteboard. Yeah. It's not a chalkboard anymore, right? Yeah. But once I had completed my program and was ready to be able to offer this, it's really also me manifesting my own long-term dreams and goals, right? Okay. My vision of what I want to be able to offer this world. And I've shared this with you. I share it with anybody that I can in the hopes of manifesting, because my vision, my long-term dream is to have a healing center, Oceanside.
Yes.
You know how I'm about the beach.
Yes.
And offering a multitude of healing modalities. So the talk therapy, the spiritual therapy, the energy healing, acupuncture, yoga. Like,
yeah.
Can you see it? Can you hear it? Can you
smell it? I'm getting this vision of like sand, water, seagulls, yoga mat,
all of it.
Sex therapist.
Yes, all of it. Like, I want it to be this hub of a healing center. And so with that in mind, and with the whole idea of me being more intentional with my energy, right? I'm like, this was my offering to the world. So the Flow and Ease Healing Center is really not only something that I am offering to the world for those that it aligns with, but reminding me that I have to stay in the flow.
In the flow, right.
I gotta walk the walk.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a way of holding myself accountable also.
Oh, good.
But now being able to offer the healing energy, the energy balancing, energy healings. My brain is fried.
That's okay. That's okay. But yes, the chakra, the heat energy part of it.
Yes, it made sense because my practice before was called the Relationship and Sexual Wellness Center. And so it's kind of like, okay, this is the new chapter.
Yes.
This is the additional that I can now offer my clients.
And like you were saying, I mean, so much of sexuality is flow and creativity.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and art form, as opposed to just physiological pieces that are supposed to fit together.
Yes.
Now, the LGBTQ community, do you work with them as well?
Absolutely, 100%. 100%. I am there to support all relationships. So, I work with not only, couples, I work with, open relationships, I work with polyamorous relationships, I work with LGBT. Yes, I'm just, if you're in a relationship, even with yourself.
Yes, yeah. The primary relationship is the one.
Absolutely.
Here's a question that people have asked me many, many times. Do open relationships really work?
Yeah, so consensual non-monogamy, there's so much controversy around it. And I think there's the biggest misconception is that there are no boundaries. That it's a
like
free
no rules.
For all.
Yeah.
Right. And they absolutely can work. And I think, and I have known and seen people to be able to work through what sometimes monogamous couples are not. And so a big part of it is talking about boundaries. What are the expectations? How do we navigate that? And what I find sometimes with monogamous couples, for example, when they're going to get married, is they don't really talk about what the expectations are.
Correct.
Or talk about what the boundaries are. So what do you consider cheating? And it's like, well, you should know what cheating is.
Say no.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it cheating if an ex contacts you via Facebook and you are having conversation? Is that cheating? No, because some people will say it's only cheating if there was sexual contact,
right?
Or maybe there's sexual contact but there wasn't intercourse,
right?
And sometimes they don't find out that this is what their partner's expectations or what their idea of cheating was until the line has been crossed. And so what I think often happens in, for example, with polyamorous relationships or consensual non-monogamy is that they have a great amount of conversing about what the boundaries and the limits are.
I would think that it almost seems like they'd have to be more mature and versed in relationships and talking to other people and clarity of communication.
Yeah. And talking about jealousy.
Yeah.
Like that, because that is so many of all our emotions, not just so many, all of our emotions are human emotions. We're going to experience them at some time or another, but it's what we do when these emotions come up. And this stuff is hard work.
I know, it is hard.
It's
hard for us and we're therapists. Yeah.
I tell that to people all the time. It's like just because we have this insight on relationships, like, okay, it doesn't make it easier because we still have to do the work.
It is. You're right. You're right. Absolutely. And sometimes it's almost a double-edged sword to be a therapist in a relationship because there are lots of expectations that you should know. Yes. And at the same time, not use your expertise.
Right.
To
therapize others.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and I think what we put on ourselves also, not only what others expect of us, like, well, aren't you a therapist?
Yes.
Yeah.
But not right now.
Right. And I know this is true for me, then the guilt that I feel because I am a therapist. It's like, damn, like I'm a therapist and I have this, and yet that doesn't exempt us from life. Doing my own work, I remember being in a therapy session with one of my therapists one time, and I was like, I've done this work. I already know all my issues, my childhood issues,
Yeah.
And she, she posed a question, and I had this insight in that moment that was very humbling because I was like, whoa, that's new. I didn't know that was there. And I've done a lot of work. I'm a therapist. I have the training. I read the books. And how did I not see that?
Yeah.
And that was a great example for me that we're often just too close to it.
Yeah.
Right? If I have food on my face, unless you tell me, I'm not going to know.
Yeah, true.
And I don't have anything reflecting it back to me. Sometimes you got to be my reflection. And so we're too close to it, and sometimes we're just not ready to see it. And so that helped me, one, to have more compassion with my clients.
Yeah.
Right? And to have more compassion with myself. It's like, this work is going to, I think, it's ongoing work. I don't think we ever reach a place of
we're done. Yeah. I think it reminds me of Michelle Obama's book, where she's talking about becoming, and that becoming your fullest self is an ongoing process. And I think of therapy like that as well.
Absolutely.
That it's never just sort of done.
It's not done, and that's because growth is never done. I hope to not I hope to not get to the place where it's like, well, I'm good, I'm done growing.
Yeah.
Because then what? Like,
then you die.
Then you die, right? I'm like, if I've reached that point and I'm still alive, like, okay, I can't see just kind of sitting around and being like, I've learned everything there is to learn.
Yeah.
Like, no, as long as I have breath, I want to be learning.
You also co-founded Melanin and Mental Health.
Yeah.
What is that all about? I know.
Yeah.
Because you're serving, or actually, well, you tell me.
Sure. So Melanin and Mental Health came about, and I love it because you got to run our pens.
I know. I have a Melanin and Mental Health pen.
It came about, really, my business partner and I met online, And I was like, who is this cool chick? She's a marriage and family therapist. Also, I like how she's using social media. We did lunch and we started to have this conversation about, so where are all the other Black and brown therapists? Because so often we get people who reach out to us specifically because they want somebody that looks like them. And whether I can help you or not, I want to be able to at least direct you in the right direction. And so that's kind of this conversation that came up. And so around the same time started Melanin and Mental Health as a social media campaign, because that year I had promised that when I have some divine inspiration, I wasn't going to talk myself out of it. I was just going to go with it. So started this social media campaign, and right away people were like, what is this? What is Melanin and Mental? I love it. Yeah. And so we revisited the conversation. We developed this strong social media following at that time. And it's like, well, let's do a happy hour and see if we get like 6-7 people to come out. We'll have a nice little referral. We had like 30 plus people come out that day.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And they were like, thank you for doing this. We need this. And so it's just grown from there. Now we have a website, melaninmentalhealth.com, where we are wanting to change the narrative around what therapy is, how we talk about mental health in Black and Latinx communities. And so we do that. We have a directory of therapists. We have merchandise. The therapy is dope.
Yes.
Merchandise. And we have the social media. We have a podcast also between sessions. And all of it is just really changing the idea of what therapy is, what a therapist looks like, how a therapist talks, because we want to get more people from our communities in therapy and also being therapists.
Yes.
That's
both are needed.
Yes.
Okay. Here's a couple of other questions I have for you. One of the definitions of Dharma is divine purpose. Along those lines, what do you think your purpose is?
I know my purpose is to be here to help others heal, and in ways that, not that I'm healing them, but that I'm just might be a few steps ahead of you. And so part of how I can help others heal is by meeting them with compassion, offering what I have to offer, but I know the work that I'm doing now, and however it will be continue to maybe evolve. I don't know what that looks like, but I know I'm here to serve others in their healing process. That I know for sure.
Yeah. And what would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, what would to believe in herself. Yeah, I think that's been a lot of the work that I've done, continue to do. That's a tough one. Yeah. I continue to do, in that I think for me, believe in yourself. A lot of people are going to try and talk you out of what you already know. There's going to be fear around you. There's going to be doubt around you. You're going to be shamed. But at the core of who you are, you know what you're capable of. And so continue to believe in yourself and allow yourself to be led.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
What would you tell your younger self about relationships and sex?
Don't lose yourself. Don't lose yourself. The relationship can only serve you if you are able to fully express yourself in it. Like that, don't lose yourself in trying to make others happy. Like it's okay for you to have expectations and desires and wants, and you're worthy of also receiving. So don't lose yourself, and you're worthy of receiving.
So that actually sounds like great takeaways for anyone listening right now. Anything you want to add to that?
I think do the work on you. Do the work on you. It's so cliche. You hear it all the time. But I think that's part of what I've learned really the hard way.
We always think it's somebody else's problem.
It's so much easier if it would just be their problem.
I know.
You would just do these things, we'd be so good.
Yeah.
And so I think whatever it is that you feel you're missing, how can you show up for yourself in that way? Like that gap that you feel is missing, how can you show up for you and really work on that wound? Because so much, I think, of what we battle with is our worthiness.
Yeah.
Right? Like that we have to do something, we have to be something, we have to accomplish something to be worthy. And so one thing that I always tell, I tell clients, I'm like, let's say we had a newborn baby in here, this beautiful, precious newborn baby, and you sit it down and you say, and I'll ask you, okay, so what does this baby need to do today in order for it to be worthy of us meeting her needs? What does she need to do? What does she need to say? How does she need to behave in order to be worthy of our attention, of our love, of our care, of our nurturing? And the answer is always the same. Nothing.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because they just are worthy. Well, we all came into the world like that. We forget that somewhere along the line. So I think it's getting back to remembering that just that precious newborn we were that at one point.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, now how can people reach you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, Flow and Ease with E. Melanin and Mental Health. Also, we're across social media, Instagram, Facebook, and my website is flowandeasehealing.com.
Okay, and we'll have all of that in our notes.
Yes.
Eliza, this was so amazing for you to come here and enlighten us. We hope to let our listeners know great information, great insight. Hopefully we're inspiring people with what you've said today. And I'm hoping that anyone listening can also see a little bit of themselves in what you talked about, with the shame and cultural expectations. Just really blessed to have you.
I'm blessed to have you, and I'm so happy that you're doing this, that you're putting yourself out there more. Like, I'm so excited. You have been such an integral part of my healing and my growth, so I am so thankful, and this was an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.